All right, so today we're gonna be talking about my first year as a full-time creator and my transition from corporate America to becoming a creator. But first I wanted to start by saying, welcome to my channel. My name is Maddie and I'm really glad you're here. I am a full-time creator based out of North Carolina in the outdoorsy space. So I've worked with brands like Merrell, Stanley, and Alaska Airlines over the past year as I have grown into this role. Instagram is my main platform, but I'm really looking forward to experimenting on YouTube over the next year or so. There are a few things I want to clarify before we get into this video. Just a little background on me and my transition from corporate to creator. So first of all, I have no background in marketing whatsoever. I actually have 2 degrees, bachelor's and master's in accounting, and was planning on taking the CPA exam when I decided to jump ship and quit my corporate job. So I basically gotten to the point where I was about to start studying. I didn't get to the point where I was ready to take it or anything, but my boss had started to ask me like, when are you gonna take the exam? What is your plan? And I kind of kept deferring because I didn't really want to do it. I went to school for accounting because I knew it would get me jobs, not because I loved accounting. Ever since I graduated college in 2019, I had had a job in accounting in some capacity or another. I knew that it wasn't my passion and what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. I don't think any of us really know at 18 when we have to pick our major. It was great experience and I think it's really useful knowledge to have even now, but like I said, I knew it wasn't my passion, so that is when I ended up quitting my job to pursue content creation full-time. I quit my job in May 2022. I was 24 at the time and had been working in corporate America for about 4 years. I had always thought that I was going to climb the corporate ladder. When I turned 23 to 24, I kind of had this crisis where I realized that was not what I wanted to do with my life, but I wasn't sure what I did want to do, which was terrifying. I'm 25 now. I definitely do not have it all figured out, but I know that I am on the right path for me at this time, which gives me a lot of peace of mind and makes me happy. I'm gonna do a Q&A at the end, so make sure to stick around for that. I put a question box on my Instagram stories just asking people if they had any questions about going from a corporate job to a more entrepreneurial type of a role, and I got a lot more questions than I was expecting, so I might do a completely separate video on that at some point. Let me know if that's something you would be interested in the comments, but that will be at the end of this video. Before we get into my recap of the year, which I'm gonna do in quarters, I wanted to talk about the goals I set for myself for 2022 at the end of 2021. My goals were to hit 5,000 subscribers on my email list, hit 100,000 followers on Instagram. I had some financial goals as well, and I also wanted to grow my blog. We will touch on these throughout the recap of the year and whether I hit them or not. Starting with January through March, I was still at my corporate job, gearing up for tax season. Not a fun time. I had around 75,000 followers on Instagram at this point. I was traveling, but I wasn't really doing any partnerships with brands or tourism boards. I made $0 from content creation in January and February, but March is where I saw a little bit of a turn. I had a management company based out of North Carolina reach out to me. This 100% fell into my lap. I was not looking for management. I kind of took this falling into my lap as a little bit of a sign that maybe I did want to start working towards making this my full-time job. January to March really wasn't very exciting other than getting the management team. I was not at all sure when or if I was going to be able to take content creation full-time. I was just doing my regular old job. I want to clarify that my job was remote, and that is how I was able to travel so much while also working a full-time job. And so that's a lot of freedom for a corporate job, but it still wasn't enough for me. I wanted to be able to completely dictate my own schedule, and that is what motivated me so hard to create this opportunity for myself with content creation. April through June get a lot more interesting. I have around 89,000 followers on Instagram at this point, and brand deals are really starting to pick up for me. I'm getting partnerships with brands, tourism boards, and I'm also trying to survive tax season. So April rolls around and I get what I feel like is the opportunity of a lifetime. Literally my dream in doing all of this, an opportunity to get paid to travel. But here's the kicker, the dates of the trip were literally right before the tax deadline. If you've ever worked in accounting or know anything about accounting, you probably know that accountants are very busy during those dates, working after hours, working weekends, working nights to get everything in by the deadline because people like to wait until the last minute to submit their tax documents. And I didn't find out about this opportunity until the week before. So it wasn't really like I had much time to plan, but I said yes. And I went on this trip. It was to Hawaii. Hawaii is very far from North Carolina, so a lot of traveling. I was working on planes, waking up at 1 a.m. Hawaii time to get work done. And of course, our tax software was having issues and technical difficulties, which made my life a million times harder. And when you go on trips like this for a brand, they oftentimes have itineraries for you that there will be like places you're expected to be at in certain times of the day, which made this all the more challenging because I was also trying to work remotely with my corporate job. It was a little bit of a shit show. I would say this is the point where I had the epiphany that if this is what I can do in my side hustle, scraping by with whatever energy I have left after working at least 40 hours a week, what could I do if I was doing this full time? Of course, I'm not guaranteed a paycheck every 2 weeks, which is terrifying, but instead of focusing on that, I tried to focus on not having a ceiling with my income, because with my corporate job, and yes, I could have maybe gotten a job somewhere else, but it wasn't gonna be exponential growth like what was possible with becoming my own boss. My original plan had been to scale down to part-time after tax season. I went rogue and quit my job and then left for a 2-week trip to Europe. Of course, my boss had ample notice. I didn't quit on the spot or anything. And like I said, I waited until tax season was over. I did struggle a little bit after the Europe trip because I had quit my job and then left for Europe the next day. So it felt like I was on PTO and it didn't set in that I was my own boss. So I got back home and kind of freaked out a little bit. I mean, settling into a routine when you don't really have anyone directing you or guiding you or telling you, okay, these are the tasks we need to get done. It's an interesting experience. And when you're the accountant, the IT department, all of that, it's extremely overwhelming. And even now in December, I still feel like I'm figuring all of that out. Next quarter, July through September. I did so much traveling over the summer, which was amazing. I took full advantage of my new freedom and just traveled a ton. I had around 107,000 followers on Instagram at this point. Brand work was still continuing to build, which was great. I was consistently matching my corporate income, if not making more. Brand partnerships were and are my main source of income. My goal is to diversify that in 2023, but for 2022, brands were my main source of income. And then the last quarter of the year rolls around. I have around 115,000 followers on Instagram. I consistently make at least 2 times what I made at my corporate job monthly, and that is after taxes. And at this point, I'm working on figuring out what I want to focus on in my business in 2023. Instagram, of course, that is my main platform, YouTube, and I also would love to sell my first digital product. So those are my top 3 priorities. So circling back to my goals for the year, first goal was to hit 5,000 subscribers on my email list. I didn't quite hit it, but I got really close, and I'm proud of that because I think I had around 600 starting the year and am ending the year with around 4,500. Next goal was to hit 100,000 on Instagram. I did that back in, I want to say it was either August or September. I think it was September, which is unreal to me because last September, so September 2021, I had less than 10,000 followers, and that is when I really started to take Instagram seriously and did things to start growing. Another one of my goals was to grow my blog. We did not do that, and that is okay. Of course, I still have my blog, and that's not to say that I'll never publish another blog post or anything like that. I do enjoy writing, but I just don't think it's in the cards for me right now, and I'm accepting that that is okay instead of trying to force it so much. Regarding my financial goals for the year, I was just doing a little math because I don't want to get too much into the financial goals specifically, but to put this into perspective, I was only a full-time creator for 7 months out of the year and ended the year making 20,000 more after taxes than I would have made just staying at my corporate job, which blows my mind. I try to keep an abundance mindset and trust that the opportunities and money would come, and they did. I've never had a month where I made less from content creation than I did at my corporate job after taxes, but I have had months where I made 4 times what I made at my corporate job. If you needed a sign to chase your freaking dreams and do whatever makes you happiest, follow your passions, this is it. Now I'm going to read off some questions from Instagram about content creation, or going from corporate to content creation, going from corporate to entrepreneurship, all of that. I kept it pretty broad. First question, what is the scariest part? Which goes back to the fear of risk and failure that just gets ingrained in our minds. For me personally, it was the fact that I didn't have any entrepreneurs in my family. So I was like, okay, what about retirement? What about healthcare? And those were the questions I was getting from outside sources as well. And I was like, I don't know. Also, not having a paycheck get direct deposited every 2 weeks was terrifying to me as well. So that would be the scariest part before quitting. And then now I don't really feel scared. I know I made the right decision, and I am so happy. Of course, I have days that aren't great and I have to do things that I don't love doing, but I know that I am living in alignment with where I am supposed to be, and that brings me so much happiness. All right, what was the thing that made you realize you were ready to leave? This goes back to that epiphany I had in April, May, June timeframe, where I just ask myself if this is what I can do scraping by with the energy I have left over after working my corporate job. What could I accomplish if this was my full-time job? And the fact that I wouldn't have a ceiling on my opportunities or income anymore. Another question was, how do I project revenue? And that is really hard, and something that I hope I can do better in 2023 if I sell digital products or have income from other sources. Instagram brand partnerships are extremely unpredictable. I can't really predict when a brand is gonna have a campaign going on. I have monthly targets that I would love to hit, and there are things I can do to try and get there as far as like pitching and whatnot, but it is very much all over the place. Perks of being a creator would definitely be the freedom. I get to choose which contracts I say yes and no to. So if a brand reaches out to me that I do not feel like is a good fit, I can say no. And if I want to go to the grocery store at 2 in the afternoon on a Wednesday, I can do that, which is glorious. And I also get to travel a lot more because I'm not limited to 2 weeks of PTO like I was at one of my jobs. I've been there and it was terrible. And that was the motivation I needed to put me where I'm at today. Do paid opportunities find you, or do you seek them out? With my management team, any opportunity that hits my inbox, I automatically forward to them, and they handle the contracts, negotiations, invoicing, all of that for a percentage of the brand deal. Now, a lot of my work does find me, so they're reaching out to me, but there is outreach as well. So I would say it's maybe like 80-20, 80 being they find me and 20% being outreach. Do I have any plans to return to the corporate world in the future? No. I hope not. I don't know that I always want to be an influencer, but I don't want to go back to the corporate world. I do know that for sure. One of the most asked questions was something along the lines of, how did I prepare financially to quit? And I was consistently bringing in at least what I made at my corporate job after taxes from this side hustle. So I had gotten to the point where I felt comfortable quitting my corporate job. How long were you a part-time creator before switching to full-time? I started taking content creation seriously in September of 2021 and quit my job in May 2022. So about 9 months that I was doing it part-time before I quit my job. How is your mental health and well-being compared to working in corporate versus now? I think that's tough, because now I have the freedom that I always wanted, but with freedom comes stress because you always feel like you could be doing more. I would get my corporate tasks done and it was like, check, check, check. Okay, I'm done with what I needed to accomplish this week. But with entrepreneurship and being your own boss, the things you can do are unlimited. I could always be doing something more. And so that's been kind of hard for me, knowing when to draw the line and say, hey, we're done for the week. I am going to rest. Overall, I get to do more of what I want to do, and that makes me happier. I love my job, but that's not to say that it doesn't come without mental health challenges. This is a really interesting question. Do you find content creation competitive with other people or the algorithm? As far as other people, it is more personal. It is not like I am competing with other creators in the space that I am, but I am definitely guilty of comparing myself to other creators. So that is tough, but I don't feel like I'm in competition with anyone like trying to create better content than them or anything like that. Because I struggle with the self-inflicted comparison, I try and really focus on myself and stay in my lane. I don't consume a ton of content other than to try and get inspiration. And then with the algorithm, it's hard to say because you really never know. And I just got to the point where I had to accept that I do not control the algorithm. So I can do my part to add value and create content that I feel like is good. But at the end of the day, however many people see that content or who Instagram decides to push it to is out of my control, and I just had to accept that. That is all the questions I'm gonna answer in this video. If you have any more, you can leave them in the comments and I will answer them there. Overall, I feel like 2022 was a great year for my first year in business, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how 2023 goes. I can't wait to look back on this video a year from now and see how things have changed and where I'm at.